Rahim. बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. वेलकम एवरीवन टू दिस सेशन बाय एटम कैंप. और आज के हमारे इस सेशन के स्पीकर जो हैं मोहसिन जुनैद साहब हैं. मोहसिन साहब भी मेरी तरह साथ ज़्यादा डॉक्टर नहीं लिखते, तो इसलिए उन्होंने ज़्यादा एडवर्टाइज नहीं की हुई अपनी पीएचडी. सो अदरवाइज ही हैज़ डन हिज बैचलर इन इंजीनियरिंग फ्राम GIK इन कंप्यूटर साइंस एंड PhD फ्राम द यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ टेक्सास अर्लिंगटन. और बिग टेक कंपनीज में जो है वो काम भी करते रहे हैं. और मोहसिन जो हैं वो अभी सीनियर सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर हैं एट इंस्टाकार्ट, एक ऑनलाइन ग्रोसरी स्टोर है. एंड बिफोर दैट ही वर्कड एज एन AI रिसर्च इंजीनियर एट सैमसंग रिसर्च अमेरिका, जहाँ पर उनका काम ज़्यादातर NLP के ऊपर रहा है. सो दैट्स अ ब्रीफ इंट्रोडक्शन. बाकी अगर मोहसिन साहब अपने बारे में कुछ और बताना चाहें तो ही कैन टेल, अदरवाइज ओवर टू हिम. सो विल हैव हिज सेशन. जिन लोगों ने बाद में ज्वाइन किया है, they can introduce themselves in the chat as well as they can write their questions in the chat. और उसमें मोहसिन साहब टाइम टू टाइम जो है वो इसको देखते रहेंगे. And thank you very much, Mohsen Saab, for joining us and waking up so early and just at the breakfast time, having this session. This time difference usually it's quite crazy. और लोगों का फिर भी टाइम दे देते हैं पाकिस्तानी जो एक्सपेट्रिएट, पर्टिकुलरली जो टेक इंडस्ट्री में है. तो आई थिंक दिस इज वन वे टू गिव बैक. सो ओवर टू यू, मोहसिन साहब.
Okay, thank you, Naveed Saab. Much appreciate for your introduction. अभी again the introduction आपने दे दिया, तो I'll just quickly add के मैं interview preparation में पिछले 3-4 साल से on and off active रहा हूँ. तो I know like I've been going through interview process online and on-site interviews with a lot of companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, not Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and all other companies. So I know a lot of their processes. I've been like going through, and actually, interestingly, I may actually go through the process again this year, given these different circumstances. So I know like how the process looks like and what they're expecting. And on the sideline, I also do mock interviews for other folks. So who are also applying for coding interviews at least at the big company. So at the intent of this presentation is to give you idea at early stage of your career that you can apply all these positions, and if you want to, if you're interested, so what exactly do you need to apply to? What exactly you need to actually be prepared to get prepared for that. So okay, so I'll go through the presentation one by one, and meanwhile, so keep posting your questions in the chat. And after 15-20 minutes, I'll take a look and see if I can answer those questions along the way. That sound good? Okay, so I'll take silence as yes. Okay, so without further ado, for me, so I think is let introduce myself. So like I did my undergrad. Let me actually go to presentation mode. Okay, can you see me? Like, can you see my presentation again?
Yes. Just वो presentation mode में नहीं है. I don't know if you want to keep it that way. Yeah, it's okay. Slide sharing
okay.
mode में नहीं.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it never works for me. Okay, so
But
maybe
it's
I'll
okay.
just
We can see
okay.
it. That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just go through like right away. Okay, so I did my undergrad from GIK, did my PhD from UT LinkedIn. So I worked for 2 years Instacart, and before that I was working at Samsung for 4 years in machine learning, deep learning projects. And I recently, like in the past, I had offers from Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Instacart, and Samsung. And I also do mock interviews for FANG Plus candidates. That's like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, plus other companies. So the things that we want to discuss today is like what kind of job types we have in the United States, like in general in Europe as well, and why you want to go to big tech and why you should apply to there, be prepared for that, and what are their expectations from the candidates, and like how to actually prepare resume for that. And again, the last is like job application process. So like if you're in Pakistan, and what are different career paths some people take to actually land jobs in even US, in UK or Europe. And the last is into preparation. So there are basically, okay, so I think this, so there are two types of job, very cleverly named type 1, type 2. So one is like all the big tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, like Twitter, Snapchat, Uber, Lyft. And then there's like other types of jobs like like software houses, IT companies, in a way that like they build projects, not products, and then like all other stuff like government related jobs and all that stuff. So their expectation, like in a way that so green bar actually shows like how many points that you need to have in like in a specific technology at domain that I am actually presenting here. And light green means that you just need not enough that like not enough of that. So in terms of length, so before I actually go through this whole presentation, so this actually is very much targeting computer science graduates, the whole presentation, but I will keep answering other questions in machine learning, deep learning, if some other folks have, or even data science. And but just to give you a heads up that this conversation is mostly gonna talk about computers programming related interview preparation. And secondly, even for data science folks and machine learning engineers, they do ask these kind of question on programming. Even like if you're applying for a machine learning engineer, so typically they ask two coding questions and two machine learning related questions. So it's better to be prepared for these kind of questions. Okay. So for type 1, so you need language expertise. What they're looking for is like if you're a Java developer, Python developer, Ruby developer, so you are most likely to gonna, it's easier, relatively easier to get a job in type 1, like government jobs or other software engineering jobs. But for type 2, they do look for, okay, can you folks mute? Thank you. Okay, so for type 1, so they're looking for is a Java developer, Python developer, but type 2, like all the big tech companies, so they're not looking for specific position like Java developer or Python developer. They're looking for software engineers. Like you need to have some basic skill set on that, on coding and data structure and algorithms. So they going to ask question on this one, like inheritance or polymorphism? This very typical question. Most likely in type 1, yes. On type 2, they almost never ask this question, like what is this thing and what is that part. So the kind of question they ask, that automatically assume that you know this kind of stuff. Even if you don't, they assume that you can learn quickly. Technology and expertise, again on type 1, like they looking for specific technology like .NET, Spring, frameworks. So interview question on this again. So both of them for type 1, definitely they look for these kind of technologies like .NET expert, Spring framework, or some other specific technology. But in type 2, like in Facebook, Apple, Google, so they don't typically look for specific technology. They actually look for basic skill set again. So we'll come to that part, what they're looking for. And the next is data structure algorithms. So now the shift is a little bit towards on Facebook, Apple again, big tech. So data structure algorithm is basically like basic algorithm like sorting algorithms, uh, tree data structure and all that stuff, like basic.
गाइस जितने भी लोग हैं सारे अपने आप को म्यूट रखें। मैं जो गलती से आप लोग कर लेते हैं फिर मुझे म्यूट करना पड़ता है, उतनी सी डिस्टरबेंस जो है वो 1-2 मिनट डिस्टर्ब कर देती है ट्रेनर को। तो एवरीवन प्लीज म्यूट योरसेल्फ, मेक श्योर दैट यू म्यूटेड योरसेल्फ। दैट्स अ बेसिक एटिकेट। जब भी आप आइंदा भी कभी जूम मीटिंग्स में जाएं तो ट्राई टू जॉइन एज म्यूटेड जो है ना। सॉरी जी, गो अहेड प्लीज।
No, sure, thank you. So for data structure algorithms, so you need to be expert for big tech companies. So we'll come to this part as well, like what exactly they're looking for here. Just this slide is just for a high level overview. Excuse me. Behavior questions. like conflict resolution, like tell me a time that when you had a conflict with your managers or with some other folks, how did you deal with that? And like how do you typically think about different problem sets, or how do you actually solve those problems, and what is your approach? So these kind of questions. So typically, like in like type 1, they don't ask much question on that, but on type 2 they definitely ask this question. This is actually one full set of 45 minutes of interview question that they ask. And yeah, just give me a second. Okay. Okay. And next is scalable system design, like design Netflix. So they don't expect to actually let you design the whole Netflix project or in a way, but what they actually expect is like the basic stuff, like how it actually works at high level in 45 minutes. Can you actually build a skeleton of that, of the Netflix or even Uber or Facebook or anything? And can you actually take a big problem and divide into sub problems and see what we can do in just 45 minutes? So typically these kind of questions are asked in like when you are applying for a senior position. But as a junior engineer, as a first time entry, so all of the companies have stopped asking these kind of questions. So yeah, don't need to worry about that if you're just not applying for senior positions. And last part is object modeling. So design a parking lot. So this is most likely for junior folks. So they do ask this kind of, instead of scalable system design, they ask question like object modeling, like design a parking lot or design an elevator, like what kind of objects you can build and how to actually build those kind of concepts at higher level in a domain diagram. So they type 1, type 2, they ask this kind of question for sure, like because they are both involved in like Java or Python and basic concepts. Okay. And yeah, so we're gonna discuss on the right side today, like type 2, and we're gonna continue with that. So that was the mainly on job types. So I'll quickly go through now. I have a bit time on introductions and questions. So just give me a minute. Meanwhile, you can post your question as well. Projects, public sector profession, can consider background, triple BSc. Okay. And on the question side, okay. Okay, so I think don't have any questions so far, which is good, unless I'm missing something. Okay. So why big tech companies? Why you should join and apply for it, even like if it takes a year or 2 years? One is, I mean, they give a lot of money relatively, but they also take away like in terms of taxes, like they take a lot of tax. Yeah, but still, like yeah, it's relatively better, and the growth is relatively better. And second is work satisfaction and prestige, that you can tell, you can make your family and friends proud that you're working at like big tech companies. And yeah, so that's pretty much. So I just want to give you like a high level idea, like what does it mean, like what kind of salary structure they have, and what can you expect from there? Okay, so I cannot see. Can you see my mouse moving? Just
Yes,
curious.
yes, we can see that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. Thank you. So for E3 is basically like junior engineer. As soon as you graduate, uh, that typically is actually that's where you actually start. So typically the basics, the salaries. So the green part is base salary, that is fixed dollar amount, and stock is basically RSU. It's called. They give you stock which are actually vested over years. So after 1 year, you'll get like whatever they give you stock grant, they actually divide by 4. In the first year, you get that part. And the bonus is typically 10 to 15% of your performance. So that means at Facebook, you'll get for first year roughly 200K salary. So this is annual salary again. I think typically in Pakistan, we have monthly salary. So this is annual salary. And for E4 is typically you have a couple of years of experience, then you apply for 220 to 30, but it can actually go to 300 as well. So depending upon if you have competing offers. And actually, so the years is written here. So E5 is actually again it goes 400. So if we see keep saying like the base salary kind of remains relatively flat, but the stock actually goes way up by the end. So that is because they don't want to give you hard cash, a lot of it. And so if the company grows, the stock grows and you also get a lot of money from there. So, and similarly for, I think Google, they pretty much have the similar ranges uh, for base salary, L3. So they are similar levels, similar compensation packages. So you typically get like 200, 300, again, 400. So it keeps increasing, of course. But you can, so all these numbers are like in general median level salaries. So they can go up, they can go down depending upon your performance in the interview. Okay, so I'm gonna up, sorry. Okay. Okay, so next step is the big tax expectation from the candidates. So before that, I think there's some question here. So what are the benefits of joining big tech company apart from monetary benefits? So actually, there are a lot of perks. And second, so they're like free food and all that stuff, and like they give you like you can get a lot of money. But apart from that, you kind of get to build projects and products which are going to be used by millions of users, like billions or maybe users in terms of Facebook or Google. And that kind of growth or expectation that you don't get from anywhere in the world. Like even if you're working for any other company, non-big tech, you may not get that experience. And another benefit of that is like once you actually go through Facebook, Google, then any company would be willing to hire you like very easily because then they know like you have actually passed the highest bar out there. And no, that means you have made it basically. That now you can go to any company and then say, well, I'm coming from Facebook, Google, and they would be happy to have you. And third, so after you work at like FANG company for a couple of years, it's very easy to get funding for your own projects in the future. For example, like if you want to build your own company, that means yeah, just give me a second, I think. So if you want to build your own company in the future, that means uh, they're gonna give you funding very easily because they know you are the people like you who have worked on these big problems. Do you know how the technology works, how to scale from one user to millions of users? So that's very easy, and then they trust you much more better. So there are a lot of benefits on that, and all other folks are very smart, so you learn from them a lot. So there are like a lot of things like to consider. Okay. So what they expect from the candidates in terms of like programming jobs or software engineering jobs, uh, I'll go through one by one. One is like basics on language, operating system, networking, database. So they expect you to have basic knowledge on that. So they don't ask specific question on like how you write SQL query or how you write like what's a network layer stack and all that stuff. But they expect you to have this kind of knowledge. Second, work experience is not required to get in. Having it does not hurt either. So what does it mean is like if you have like 4 or 5 years experience working in Pakistan, so in US they typically don't consider it as much of an experience in a way, unless they actually recognize that company, they don't actually think it's a big deal. So they're gonna kind of ignore at all in a way. Unless you have like 10 years experience, that may be considered for 4 or 5 years experience here. But still you have to clear the interview, you still have to go through the process, and based on your interview performance they're going to judge if you have any experience or not. And third is data structure algorithms. So they're going to ask a lot of question on like array, linked list, hash table, binary tree, like so these are like the first is data structure, the second is algorithms. So they may ask you a question which actually use these kind of data structure algorithms. So they're not going to ask you what exactly is that, how does it work, and all that stuff. Okay, and next is coding fluency. So first they're gonna once they actually post a question to you, they're gonna assume that you can come up with some relative working solution in 10-15 minutes. And once you propose an algorithm, can you implement in 10-15 minutes again? So basic algorithm, you should be a binary search, string processing, sorting, recursion, sorting, like all the algorithms, you should be able to solve like in 10-15 minutes. And like if you actually wake up at night and somebody asks you to write a binary search, you should be able to do in 5 minutes. Basically, that's a bar. And if you actually propose some new algorithm, can implement in a given time, like in 45 minutes of the interview. Okay. And the last is pickup techniques to achieve peak performance. So this is just more like once you actually get all the knowledge and all that stuff, what are the things that you may have to do to actually uh, get through the interview process. So this basically involves like once you have done everything preparation and like how to actually say what they're looking for and how to actually do better in the coding interviews itself. Okay, so that's a big tax expectation in terms of software engineering jobs. So I'll pause for if you have any there are some questions. Okay, great. We don't have any questions. Very great audience we have today. That's great. Okay. Okay, so some of the slides I actually copied from here, but most of them are like 3-4 slides. So the next question is, what exactly your resume should look like? Well, so like in general, this should have education, work experience, projects, GitHub online profile. If you have built any projects, make an awesome resume, like impactful points, and create an updated LinkedIn profile. So typically when a resume is reviewed, it takes around 10-15 seconds, typically from a recruiter, that they're going to take a look and see if they're going to call you or not, unless you are referred like from some other sources. So they actually pick up a resume from Giant Stack. They quickly check company names, position, projects, schools, and then skim bullets, points, and see if you are like written real code, and then accept and reject. So I think what McDowell recommended is 15-30 seconds, but I heard like even like 7 to 8 seconds is okay. That's maximum they give. So especially at the big tech companies, they get a lot of resumes. So it's very difficult to stand out. So make sure like your resume is actually what they're looking for. So what the ideal resume should look like, actually, that's where actually the presentation mode should have been better. Anyway, so first of all, it should be only one page. So unless you have 10 years of experience. So typically we in Pakistan, so I used to have 2-page resume, like even at start of my career, but what they expect is 1 page resume, so they can take a look at it uh, roughly 7 to 10 seconds. And the format should be like well-organized columns, short 1 to 2 line bullet points, and no objectives again. So by short bullet points, it means so let me go through one of the lines here. For example, here, software design intern where she worked at Microsoft. So implemented user interface for VS Open File Switcher and extended it to tool windows. So what does that mean is focus on accomplishments, like what you did, what did you achieve with that, and how you did it. You just have to write it in 1 or 2 sentences. So don't ever write roles and responsibilities. Like I see like a lot of people actually put that, but that does not mean anything. Like you were supposed to do that, but did you do any of that stuff? That's what matters. So it's better to write like what exactly you did and make it quantifiable numbers. So even if you don't know the exact number, it is fine, but just put relatively like quantifiable numbers so that they can take a look and see, well, okay, this is what you improved, how much you improved, and how did you do that? That's what is important. And GPA, if you have like at least 3.0 like in major, so that's another thing in US. So typically, if you don't have like a like CGPA, much better relatively. So you can put your computer science GPA itself. You can well say like my computer science GPA or GPA major GPA is actually 3.0 or 3.5 or something. So that means, so if you're not good in like HR related courses like humanity and all that stuff, but you are good in computer science, that's still good enough. And mention 3-4 projects, courses and independent, and finished or unfinished. So if you have done any independent work, make sure you do mention it under technical experience or projects. So they actually put a lot of weight on independent projects. That shows that you are actually interested in building things, and you are actually into technology. But if you just mention all those projects which you are only done because you are supposed to do in the coursework, which is still good but not great. But if you have done independent work, any project which is related to the job, that is like really, really great. And list of technical skills, cut the fluff. Basically is like you just mention what technologies you are like you have experience or what kind of you have worked on, and that should be good enough. I mean, like don't write Microsoft Word and installing uh, Windows, but yeah, but basic level, like what is related for the job. Okay, so what kind of technical questions are posed to data science and AI applicant? Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So for data science and AI applicants, so the resume would still be similar, but the question that they're gonna ask is basically, so I'll come through. I'll actually the next step is actually after this one is what the basically interview process looks like, what kind of question they ask, and over there maybe I can so I can explain like how actually they how they actually construct the interview pipeline. So what kind of question they're gonna ask. So yeah, thanks, Navisa, for asking that question. So I'll come to that part after this one, which is actually the next page. Okay, so job application process. Okay, so yeah, next 2-3 slides, I'm gonna answer that question. Thanks. So typically, so job application process. So like L3 again, I think we discussed this one earlier, that L3 is software engineer, like 0 to 2 years of experience. L4 is 2 to 5 years of experience. L5 is 5 years. L6 is 10 plus years. So for L3, so when you are actually fresh graduate, so that you're going to apply for L3 position. And even if you have 2 years experience, you're still L3 will be more applicable. Okay, so I am okay. So I'll come to the question in a minute. So typically, when you apply for into process for L3, L4 engineer, so you can apply online referral. You get a referral recruiter contact. So this is the process is same for machine learning engineer, data scientist, AI engineer. So the overall process is similar. It's just like what they're going to ask in the interview that is going to be different. So the first step is you land an interview. This is actually relatively a bit more difficult than you can imagine. So if you can get a referral, that is much better because there's a higher chance that a recruiter will take a look at your resume. And then if they decide if you are in applicable or not, that is a different part. But if you apply online, I mean, I have got calls in the past by applying online, but again, that's like a low success rate. And if typically recruiter also contact on LinkedIn. So I know a couple of folks who actually went to Google Australia through recruiter contacts in back. So and they were in Pakistan. So recruiters reached out to them, and they responded, and that's how they went to Google Australia. But so yeah, so that is where that is why it's very important to have your LinkedIn very ready, because all the recruiters who are outside the country, they only gonna take a look at the at your profile and make a decision that if they should call you or not. So once you land an interview, so that typically the first call they're gonna ask, it's typically 30 minutes phone call. And what they're gonna ask is current work status, like where you're working, what kind of a project that you're doing, expectations alignment is that like what exactly you're doing and what do you expect that like what kind of role that you're looking for. So typically, like if you are in like software engineering and you want to apply for machine learning engineer, so you can still apply it. They can still reach out to you, but that's where they're gonna ask you that a machine learning related question, not software engineering question. So it's very important to actually align your expectation with them. And third is immigration status. Like if you have any green card, like if you can come here, or what kind of visa status you're going to need for that to even like work in specific country. And the timeline, like if you're interviewing with other companies and that they should be aware of, like if you're applying for 4 or 5 different companies and you have interviews lined up, so they want to know that, okay, if it takes 3 or 4 months and so that they can schedule interviews accordingly. Okay, and so far, so this process is kind of same for machine learning engineer, software engineering, and data scientists as well. But so now, so this process is for software engineering. Like, so once you actually land an interview, go through recruiter call, go through. So the next step is phone screen interview. Typically, it's 45 minutes phone or video call. For first 10 minutes is introduction, and then they're going to ask like a 2 coding problems, one easy and one medium. So depending upon how that goes, they may ask us one medium question. So I'll come to that. Like, what does it mean, medium question? And but that's where the coding part comes in. And for data scientists and ML engineers, so they're going to ask. So the introduction might be a bit longer because they want to know what exactly you did in machine learning related projects and how you did that and what did you accomplish there. And then they may pose you a different question, not coding, but actually like eh, given a problem, like can you actually design something which actually needs a machine learning algorithm? And they're gonna give you a very small set of problem and then ask you to solve that problem like in 10-15 minutes. And idea is basically to actually understand how you actually given a problem, can you clarify those requirements, what exactly you are supposed to build. And that is where most of the people actually fail interviews because they actually assume they know the question and they don't ask questions what to build. So like all the big tech companies, so they actually fail a lot of folks on this part alone. And if you don't ask question, so let's say if I ask you, well, as a machine learning engineer, that build a recommendation engine. So this is a very vague question. So what you want is basically ask what recommendation engine, like how it is going to be used, who are the target audience, and uh, like where it's going to be like applicable, like it's just millions of users or one user and all that stuff. But this process, like phone screen, is also going to be same for again software engineering and machine learning folks. On site, once you actually clear full screen, so typically they ask you to go through on site. So on site is that again that is typical. It may actually vary again. So it has 5 interviews. So if you are like a computer software engineering, applying for software engineering, you may get asked like 4 coding questions, like 4 coding interviews, and 1 behavior. It could be 3 or 4, but it depends. And they may ask a different kind of question, like easy, medium, too easy, too medium. So these are like different types of question hardening, like if it's easy, medium, or hard question. Yes. So these are all different. So all coding means it's a different 45-minute interview. So it's similar. So phone screen. So if you actually go through here, so this phone screen question, like 45 minutes, is kind of replicated again in on-site. So this coding question, one block, it means is 45-minute coding question. Then again 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes, and then behavior 45 minutes. So you don't have to pass all of them, but what they want, so the actually it's much relatively a bit easy to pass on-site than phone screen. So phone screen, you just have one chance. Like if you have seen that problem, if you have seen similar problem, it's easy to maybe like phone screen, like then it's easy to pass. But if you have never seen a problem or algorithm, then it's very easy, difficult to pass phone screen. But for on-site, so even if you fail one coding interview, you can, if you pass the remaining one, that is still better. You can still get an offer. Actually, I actually didn't do well in two of my coding interviews at Microsoft, and I still got an offer just because I probably did good better in other coding interviews. So, so on sites are like is again they're hard as well, but you don't have to pass all of them. So the mindset is like if you did bad in the first coding interview, just forget about it and think as a fresh start for the next coding interview, and then you can pass. Okay, so before we actually go to next one, so for machine learning and data scientists, so the structure is similar, relatively structure is same. It's just like in on-site, they may ask you instead of 4 coding questions, so they may ask you 2 coding questions and 2 machine learning data project questions. So they may give you some problem to actually like build a recommendation engine, again the same example, and then they will actually that and they will tell you that's it. And now you have to, if you have the experience, then you would ask the right set of questions and propose the right set of solution for that. And then you have to continue coordinate with your interviewer that okay, this is what you're looking for, what exactly what is the requirement. First clarify requirement and then ask propose a simple solution. Then once you build a solution for 10 people, then you have to expand it, scale it to millions of users, and then you actually use different pros and cons, different trade-offs to tell okay why you cannot use this or why you should use this part. So typically in 45 minutes they can judge like if you have worked on any of the project and if you have enough experience or enough knowledge to build something else, what in addition to what you have already done. Okay, and so yeah, so once you actually go through on site, typically sorry, so like then so at least at Google, so then so if on-site clears, then it goes to hiring committee. So then they decide like in general like how's your feedback from different interviewers. So this is a very independent committee. So excuse me. And then you go through team matching process and then you get an offer. So Google is relatively a bit like once you actually go through on-site and typically offer, typically the team matching is the longest process, typically takes 2-3 months for team matching, but at other companies you may actually get much quicker. And there's one difference in interview process for Apple. So for Apple, typically they don't ask coding question too much. They ask very domain specific questions. So let's say if you're applying for ML engineer, so all these interviews are going to be machine related to machine learning. And if you're applying for data scientist positions, all these interviews are going to be related to data scientist position. So they may actually pick a project that you worked on and then get through it and see like why you did what and how you did that and all that stuff. And so Apple is relatively different, but all other companies they ask this very they follow this structure. Okay, I see Hassan. You want to ask question? Yeah, please feel free.
सर मैंने पूछना था कि I've seen some of the interviews at Google and ये Microsoft जिस तरह आप कह रहे हैं I've seen कि वो ज़्यादा they're more about solving a situation rather than hardcore coding जिस तरह आपने भी बताया कि easy medium different levels हैं तो how much of a percentage it is about solving a certain problem in a certain situation और कितनी ज्यादा वो कहते हैं कि आप जो है सिंटैक्स लिखें, आप पूरा कोड करें, तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बता दो।
I think it's a great question. Yeah, thank you. So before COVID, the recommendation used to be like you should practice on whiteboard because that's when the on-site happens. Like when you go on-site, you would actually code on a whiteboard over there. So that means you should be very familiar with the language. So once you actually go through, once you practice a lot of coding interviews, so you would know that your syntax gets like much better. Like you actually don't make syntax errors anymore. So if you solve like 100 to 200 problems, so there is then you actually focus more on the problem itself than the syntax. So definitely your syntax will get better. So then you don't need to worry about syntax and all that stuff. It's just like it becomes second nature. But that's only if you are actually practicing in only one language. But if you're doing in multiple languages, that is a problem because then you're gonna get confused like which language is supporting which format for like even for if else condition. So and other than that, so typically I'll come through the coding part like how many problem you should be able to solve before applying. So typically the recommendation is like around phone screen like at least 50 to 100 problems, and for on-site at least 200. So that's a like rough ballpark, but if you actually do more the better it is. You so basically you have to increase your odds, and if you're doing it really well, like all different ways going through the problem and learning it, then that's much better. Another caveat is even though I explained like there are like a coding interviews, a lot of this, but for machine learning and data scientist position, so you may not go through the coding at all. It depends on the company. So it's much better to take a look at Glassdoor or Blind and see what kind of sector they follow. And if you don't want to take a look there, just ask the recruiter. So they typically give you one by one, like exact detail, what kind of question they're going to ask you. You can actually ask like if it's going to be coding interview or is it going to be something else, and then prepare accordingly. So recruiter, don't be afraid of recruiter. Whatever you have experience with recruiter, typically does not translate into how the interviewer are going to think about it. So just ask as many questions to recruiter, and if they don't want to answer, they won't answer. But ask as many questions as possible. Okay, so let
मोहसिन
me
साहब
actually go
चैट
to
पे कुछ क्वेश्चंस आए हुए हैं, शुड
yeah
वी गो विद दैट या मैं कुछ
yeah
पढ़ दूं ताकि आपका टाइम उसमें कम हो जाएगा फिर।
sure please
तो
go ahead.
एक तो मैंने ही क्वेश्चन लिखा था कि हाँ, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन ये हो गया था, हाउ मच क्लाउड is considered part of your knowledge or considered in interviews, उसमें AWS, Azure or OpenStack. Most companies are moving to the cloud, but it's that big deal when it comes to hiring people who have never worked in the cloud before. एक तो इस पे आप बात करना चाहें तो आप बता दें क्लाउड की
Sure.
अंडरस्टैंडिंग कितनी है और किस तरह की जॉब्स में चाहिए होती है।
Sure. So typically at like big tech companies, again, tier one, tier two, they don't look for specific experience. Like if you have Azure, AWS or GCP or any other experience, all they go care is they think you can learn these kind of skills. So they think they are hiring smart people and who can learn any technology. And mostly, whenever you join a company, some of them they have their own internal tools, and that means you're going to learn those tools anyway. So they don't care if you have like experience in specific technology. But again, if you go below that, like a type one job, so they may actually look for specific technology or experience. That if you have cloud experience and they are looking for a cloud expert, then definitely that's going to help there, but not here, like in
अच्छा,
and
इसमें दूसरा इसमें मैंने लिखा था कि डू बिग कंपनीज रिक्रूट ओनली पीपल विद सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग डिग्री, सो हियर आई मेंट कि क्या सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग के जैसे कोडर्स हायर करते हैं और टेक्निकल जॉब्स पे भी लेते हैं, तो डू दे केयर कि व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ डिग्री यू आर कमिंग फ्रॉम, क्या आपकी वही डिग्री होनी चाहिए जो वो हायर कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज दैट्स आई एम आस्किंग ओवर द टाइम, जैसे यूनिवर्सिटी ज़्यादातर जो कंपनीज हैं वो डिग्रीज की बजाय स्किल्स को प्रेफर कर रही हैं, तो इसके ऊपर आप इफ़ यू वांट टू ऐड समथिंग।
sure, अगर तो आप like if you are graduated in computer science, And so typically, I think from Pakistan, recruiters don't reach out to fresh graduates unless you're actually from top one or top like a top one or two, three universities. But mostly they actually talk to senior folks and hire them as a fresh engineer there back in like in US or UK, for example. So if you have a degree in computer science and you are also working in computer science related job, there's a high chance. And if you don't have a degree, but you're still working in something programming related jobs, so then once you start working on like a software engineering job, then it doesn't matter which degree you have. So as long as you can actually clear their interview, they are happy with that.
अच्छा जी,
So
उसके बाद था how do non-tech graduates with totally different work experience 3 to 4 year add to their resumes besides independent projects on GitHub? कि अगर वो पहले नहीं थे, so what I understand from this question that earlier they were in a non-tech sector and then they've switched to the tech sector, they've learned themselves, but the previous experience is not related to it. So know what they can do कि वो GitHub पे जो है वो अपना अच्छे portfolio अगर develop कर लें, तो is that enough?
So it depends, like if you build something really cool or if you're working on something really interesting project, and so think of it as a perspective of a recruiter who has a lot of resume in front of them, and then they're gonna decide which one they actually pick. So if you have enough experience and if you're really good at working in last 3-4 years, if you've done really cool projects or really good projects, and even if you don't have the degree, that is fine. But and a second, if you're applying for a tech job, but then don't put experience on mechanical engineering related project, because as a recruiter, they have only 7 to 10 seconds, and you don't want them to spend energy and time on your mechanical projects, because then you're missing the opportunity here. So think of it as yourself for yourself as well, like where you want them to take a look at. Like if you actually put all the good projects there, then it's highly likely then they're going to take a look on those projects, especially which is job related.
Ji Itrat, can you ask question?
Yes. So my question is about the non-tech jobs in these tech companies, like people with backgrounds in policy or governance or law. So I assume that these companies have positions for such people as well. So like the number of such jobs available in the market and the criteria they look for, such jobs. So I want to know about that. And also, like, if these would also have like some background in tech or data science, so how much that would be helpful?
Okay, thanks. I think it's a great question again. So let me actually go through what is the job situation now, like in US. So typically, US government requires companies to hire people at least like hire as many Americans as possible. So these companies they actually hire non-American to justify that, okay, well, there are not enough talent in software engineering position in America from American side. So that is why they are hiring immigrants. So immigrants could be working or studying here in US, or maybe sometime they import from outside the countries. So typically they can justify for technical job that they are hiring immigrants because there is not enough talent. But for non-technical jobs like policy making, like all the things where MBA or BBA matters are in a soft skills, then it's very difficult to get through the process. I mean, you can, but there's a probability and chance is very low unless you are already in, like, for example, in US and you are studying somewhere in US, then there's a chance. But typically for all the soft skills positions, I have seen, like, that's my personal experience. Again, you can join again. I mean, there might be some deviation from there, but typically they hire Americans because it's hard to justify to US government that why they're hiring immigrants here again. And typically, I think there is some quota limitation as well, like how many immigrants they can hire compared to Americans. So if they hire all the like technical and non-technical position, all the immigrants, then IRS or US government is going to come after you and then say, why you're not hiring American.
So इसमें एक I would like to add कि जो आपने कहा है वो बिग टेक के जो वहाँ पर ऑफिसेज हैं वो पॉलिसी के लिए जो लोग हायर करने हैं, एंड ऑब्वियसली दे हैव बेटर सॉफ्ट स्किल्स दैन वही पाकिस्तानीज, दैट्स व्हाई दे प्रेफर फॉर सच थिंग्स जो है वो अपने लोकल लोगों को। सो जस्ट जो एक ट्रेंड है ना जो इनके रीजनल ऑफिसेज हैं, जैसे फेसबुक का सिंगापुर ऑफिस है तो दे हैव, गूगल का सिंगापुर ऑफिस है, तो जो इस रीजन्स को उन्होंने डील करना होता है पब्लिक पॉलिसी के लिए, लॉ के लिए, all these aspects, तो they usually hire from these countries. और जो है वो some of my students have also went on to work in the Facebook जो है यहाँ पे सिंगापुर में जो ऑफिस है उनका, and she was just a social science graduate, fresh graduate, और just she went through that interview process and she got it. इसी तरह और बहुत सारे लोगों को मैं जानता हूँ जो गूगल में काम करते हैं सिंगापुर में, और तो इस तरह की जो जॉब्स हैं आई अंडरस्टैंड, चूंकि उन्होंने उस रीजनल इश्यूज को डील करना होता है। जैसे काफी सारे लोग उन्होंने हायर किए हुए हैं जिन्होंने हेट स्पीच एनालाइज करनी होती है कि क्या पॉलिसी है, तो दे नीड टू हैव दैट कंटेक्चुअल नॉलेज। तो इसी तरह जब अमेरिकन पब्लिक पॉलिसी से उन्होंने डील करना है तो दे नीड समवन हु अंडरस्टैंड्स अमेरिकन पब्लिक पॉलिसी। तो अगर वो नहीं कोई अंडरस्टैंड करता तो उसने पाकिस्तानी पब्लिक पॉलिसी पढ़ी हुई है तो ही और शी विल नॉट बी एबल टू गो देयर एंड अंडरस्टैंड देयर पॉलिसी इकोसिस्टम। तो ये एक डिफरेंस जो है वो उसमें आ जाता है। लेकिन जो टेक्निकल रोल्स होते हैं वो एवरीवेयर सेम होते हैं। आप डेटा साइंटिस्ट जाते हैं, आप एआई जाते हैं, आप कोडर जाते हैं, तो देन इट डजंट मैटर कि आप किस रीजन से आए हैं और क्या रीजन चाहिए। लेकिन फॉर दीज थिंग्स यू नीड कल्चरल सेंसिटिविटीज, पॉलिटिकल, सोशल, तो दैट्स व्हाई दे गो फॉर द लोकल वंस।
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks. So that's, I think, much better explanation for that, for that question. And yeah, I think so. Again, if you are going through like Singapore office or UK office, or maybe like not in UK but Singapore office, so where they actually typically hire people for like again for hate speech and public policy, there's a high chance you can get or get there because like they need those people actually who are overseeing hate content for Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, for example. And the best way is to actually reach out to people who are already working in that area. Even at Facebook, look at a LinkedIn and see who are working in Singapore office, for example, and talk to them, and some of them will reply, hopefully, and then get information from there. That would be much better. Okay, so I'm going through next question. If you have any questions, so please feel free to ask.
कर चुकी हैं क्वेश्चन जो है ना, we
Okay, so
can
you
go
can
ahead.
have-
I think I've covered all these questions जो important थे।
Sir, I have a question पर मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा कि hand कैसे raise करना है Zoom पे।
Okay, sure. Please feel free.
Can I ask it?
Yeah.
हाँ जी, तो बेसिकली आप इंटरव्यूज का बता रहे थे कि आपको प्रॉब्लम्स देते हैं और 15-15 मिनट मिलते हैं सॉल्व करने के लिए। तो आई डोंट नो इफ यू हैव हैड टू फेस दिस, बट इफ लाइक एज समवन विद अ लॉट ऑफ परफॉर्मेंस एंजाइटी उस वक्त, like if someone gives me a problem, okay, ये कल तक करके ला दो तो I can, you know, I have time to think about it. but कोई अगर 15 मिनट में करो तो my mind would just shut down उसी वक्त। तो have you had to deal with this during interviews, and how have you dealt with something like this?
Yeah, so I've done like there are a lot of interviews where I actually failed just because I thought that's what they're expecting. And so with my first Microsoft interview for internship, I thought I really crushed it. And by the time I came out and I talked to my friend, only then I realized I actually solved a very different problem that they were looking for. So it's just like, so with the experience, like if you actually solve around 100, 200 problems, so there's a likely chance that they're going to ask a question related from that pool set. So that means you might have seen that problem or similar problem before already. So if you have seen that kind of problem, there is a high chance you know how to solve that. Or at least you have some idea. And then you can, and interviewers also give you a hint on, like, if you are stuck, they're going to give you hints and all that stuff. So with that, they hope that you can actually solve it in like 15, 20 minutes. So again, so the time limit which I mentioned, this is really like needed for if you want to clear all the interviews, like at all the places, which does not happen all the time. Like I have not seen anybody who actually went through into process and cleared all the interviews. The reason is there are so many hidden variables like what the interviewer is thinking. Maybe interviewer is not paying attention. Maybe the question is very weird or different question, difficult question you cannot do. Or if your mind got shut, it is fine. But the idea is to actually go through this process again and again to actually eventually you'll get better at. So I actually did my first phone screen with Microsoft. That was around 10 years back. So that when I had the first introduction, like what is happening and how that actually works. And over the years, I've given a lot of interviews over the years. So now I know the process and I know what they're expecting. So I have the experience, I have a little bit confidence because I've gone through the process again and again and again. So think of it as it will take maybe years or two, but it's totally worth it. The only thing is you have to keep going. You cannot stop in the middle and say, well, that's not for me, maybe. So yeah, performance anxiety is very, it happens to a lot of folks. And so if you want to make sure that, like there are mock interviews, companies online who actually do mock interviews. So basically, let's say you can actually just talk to them and they will assume that you are in a coding interview. And then that gives a lot of confidence if you actually go through a couple of mock interviews. And then they can give you feedback, and then you also get the confidence, and your anxiety definitely goes down with that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was very encouraging.
Sure. There was one question on certification. I just want to go through that. This month, we are discussing programming, latest stuff. Okay, so on the certification part, so they don't look for any specific certifications. Even if you have, it's fine, but that does not carry much weight. Like if you have any certification, I mean, they only care like how you do in the coding interview or like other interviews. So they're not going to ask like if you have a lot of certification. Okay. Next is okay. So there's another route to applying for a job is like you go through the internship route. So that is relatively easier because for internship there is not much liability on the company that they are hiring you for full-time position, and that's easier for you as well because typically for internship the process is relatively same. Like you land an interview, go through a recruiter call, and then you have 1 or 2 phone screen coding interviews, and you get an internship. So once you get an internship, and if you do really well, so there is a likely chance that they may offer you a full-time position right after that. So like some big tech companies, they do offer like they give you return offer right away, like after internship, like once you actually graduate. Or secondly, you can actually then either they may ask you on site and then you go through the process again, like on site, hiring committee, team matching, offer letter. So this is another route which you can take to actually go through. So this is relatively easier in a way that again, so the coding loop is a bit shorter, and they may not have that high bar relative to full-time position. So the next question comes in like where do you start from? Like if you are working in Pakistan or if you're studying, so what should you do? So one is you can apply directly for a full-time or intern position, like go on a visit visa for an interview. That's relatively, I mean, I know like some actually people did that and they are now working at Amazon, for example. But that's very like a difficult or high risk process that you will get a visa just for the interview or something else. Then, I mean, if you get contacted, so if you, the second is connect with the recruiters on LinkedIn. So a few people who went to Google Australia via this route I know, and if you watch another video from like I think from Junaid Akram, so there was an engineer who went to Google, I think in somewhere office in Europe. So she also like she was working in Pakistan and recruiter reached out to her and she went through the process and she went into Google office. And third is apply for remote positions. So like typically local candidates are preferred for this, even for remote position. Like it's hard to justify hiring like people from outside the country, especially in US. But I know like some UK office and Singapore, London office. So they do hire people from like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. Like they do hire from there. So that's relatively easy. And apply for master position. So funding is required if scholarship is not awarded. So I know also some people who actually pay for the first semester and then come here and then do part-time jobs, or they actually get an RA position. It's called a research assistant position. So what happens with the research assistant position is your tuition fee get reduced to 50%, like as a local student, and then you also get some money in return. So that's also one option. Like you apply for masters, and once you are here, then you apply for these positions. Or the last one is you apply for a PhD position. So typically that's also involves MS plus PhD. So this is fully funded position, no tuition fees, and they also give you money on stipend like 1,500 or 2,000, depending upon different universities. Any questions so far? Okay, so can we work as a freelance remotely for big techs? Then we work remotely. Like all the big tech companies, they do hire contract engineers a lot, and typically they pay well as well. So you can definitely work as a contract engineer, but for full time as a remote, it's very difficult actually, unless you are already in like US or Canada, where the actual position is what they're looking for. Okay. So next question: do US companies do psychometric testing? I've asked this before with various sources, and I'd like to know if big tech has chosen this option for interviewing them. Test frequently. So the US, at least for big tech companies, they don't ask psychometric question testing. Iqbal, can you actually clarify like what exactly is psychometric testing? But the very reason I'm asking this question is itself just shows that that means they don't do it. And but my assumption is like they ask like GRE type question, I think, reasonable, non-reasonable question. No, they don't ask these questions. Maybe like a big banks actually may ask this question, but I have not heard of that. So at least in US, at least for big tech companies, so they don't ask this psychometric testing. Okay. So now the last part is interview preparation. So that is mostly focused on coding part. And then if you have other questions, so feel free to ask in the question message chat panel. And so then I'll go through the how to prepare for interview preparation. And then if there's some other question also, I will come through after that. Okay. So this is the first question I had when I was undergraduate student. I could not write it down for myself at that time. So like write code to draw a blue diagram with one print statement. So typically there were like 4 star problems. Like one is this triangle, then there were the 3 other triangles. So typically you needed 2 loops and 1 print statement to actually implement this algorithm. So that is the level of comfort. So if you can write it now, that is much better. And also that is the level of comfort that you should have with basic data structure and algorithm. Like, can you write binary search just like you have written 2 loops? Same is true for basic breadth first, depth first search, and all that. Different kind of basic algorithms and data structures. I see like we have very diverse audience, so maybe this may not be interesting to all of them. So I'll quickly go through that. And if there are some specific questions, I'll answer those questions. So data structures, so these are the basic data structures. And you should be knowing how to implement, when to use, pros and cons, and what is the time and space complexity for all the operations: insert, update, delete. Basic algorithms, again, quick sort, merge sort, tree insertion, binary search, and space and time complexity. You should know all of that. How to study? So you can actually understand the implementation of basics should be like, so the study the basics, like that should be bug free. Complex algorithms are typically unnecessary, like A star search, red black tree processing. So practice solving question, again, don't memorize. Train yourself to recognize coding patterns. Write code on paper, not necessarily, but I mean, it's better to actually for better syntax highlighting. So there are some famous books, CLRS for fundamentals, like Algorithms by Robert Sedgwick. So typically, I think you can now look online for all that stuff, even YouTube videos. That is much better and much more efficient than reading through books itself. But if you still want to read, so these are the two books which are better relatively. But for into practice, I think this is a really great book for I think cracking the coding interview is very famous. You can actually find PDFs online for this one as well. And second is, if you are really good at CTCI, like cracking the coding interview, and if you want to just add spice things up, you can actually add elements of programming interviews. This is relatively bit advanced than the CTCI. So interview preparation online. So LeetCode is very famous if you want to prepare for coding interviews. So it has 3 different types of problems: easy, medium, hard. I mean, obviously it go in this route, like easy, medium, hard in this specific sequence. And typically distribution, like when you're doing practice, that should be, for example, 20% easy, 50 to 60% medium, and 10 to 15% hard problems. And 200 to 250 problems, like if you solve correctly, that should be good enough. And then after, and most of them would cover already. And LeetCode also has a tag where it's mentioned that top Facebook, Google, Amazon interview question, and go through that and even look at recent question on LeetCode. So you may it can give you some idea. And there is a probability they may ask the same question again. And if you get lucky, and then it's easy to go through the process. Mock interviews, do as many as possible. Like I do myself for other people as well, like through a separate company. So that's I do it for myself as well, because the more you do, the better you get. Sometimes you don't know yourself what are you like what mistakes you are making unless someone else points it to you. So do as many as possible. That is the only way to actually go through the process. Okay, so I'm not sure if we have enough time, but I just want to quickly go through one simple example. So this is a very famous question to some problem. Given an array of integers, an integer num, this is an array, and the target is 9. You have to find 2 numbers who actually sum up to the target. So let's say for 9, we would like to find 2 numbers, 2 and 7, whose sum is 9. So we have to return the indices. Indices means like where they are located in the array. So for example, for this one, we have 0, 1 index. Similarly, for example, 2, so we have 2 and 4. And for example, 3, we have 3 and 3. So that is the problem that we have to solve. Any question so far?
मेरे ख्याल में आप कंप्लीट कर लें, फिर हम प्रेजेंटेशन
Sure.
बंद करके
Angel.
फिर हम वो क्वेश्चंस पूछ लेंगे लोगों से
Sure. So I'm almost there, like in 5-10 minutes. Okay. So when we say asking clarifying questions, so these are the set of questions that they expect you to ask. So what is the range of input or output numbers of these elements? What about the duplicate answers? Can we have duplicate answer? Which one to return? Like we return first one, second one, or the last answer? Can we use same element to make a sum? Let's say if over here we have 3 and 3, can we actually just use same element to make sum as 6? Can nums array have duplicates? Like if there are duplicates, that means we will have duplicate answers. How to process that? and is the number array already sorted or not. That actually can change your algorithm itself. So the first problem solution that you can offer is brute force. Basically, it's just like a layer and layer. You keep adding layers and make optimization on top of that. One is brute force. That means you run two nested loops and find the pair. So the time complexity is relatively very bad, like order of n square. But if you actually, there's a relatively better solution is you sort input array and process the array. So the time is relatively better now, n log n. And the third, and if the input was sorted, the solution would have been different. Like if the input was sorted, then the time is order of n. It's better than n log n and n square. And again, the best solution is like two parse solutions. So store differences in hash table and process array. So time is order of n, the space is order of n again. We're giving up space to get some time back. And then the even better solution is like you actually store different like difference in hash table and keep looking for result. So this is one parse solution. So you can see there are different layers of solutions. You can provide any solution, but as long as you are actually building one on top of another one. So you can, that actually shows you are actually taking step-by-step approach to actually solve it better. Yeah, I think, yeah, so the only reason I'm actually explaining is here is because sometimes people go through interview process and they think they have done correct answers, but they still fail the interview. The reason is typically they don't explain enough, like why they're doing what they're doing. So for that, I had actually some time back, I had written like 7 steps to solve a coding question. So typically is you clarify requirements, modify the input and all that stuff. I'm gonna skip for now so that we actually go through the next one. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one. So additional sources, if somebody wants to take a screenshot to prepare for coding interview, that is something that should be on your top of your mind. And the last is, yeah, if you have any question in the future, you can ask me on this email, or even you can ask me on the LinkedIn. And that's it.
जी थैंक यू मोहसिन साहब। अगर आप इसको प्रेजेंटेशन खत्म कर लें तो हम देख लेते हैं, अगर कोई लोग हैंड रेज करना चाहें तो उसमें फिर हम उनसे पूछ लेते हैं।
The presentation खत्म, oh, so should I stop?
अच्छा, शेयरिंग स्टॉप कर लें उसमें।
Okay, let me figure that out. Where is that? Oh yes, stop share. Okay.
जी आप लोग जो कोई क्वेश्चन करना चाहें, कैन यू प्लीज शेयर द रिसोर्सेज स्लाइड एट द एंड। वो मेरे ख्याल में उसको वो आप उसको या उसको कॉपी करके जो है टेक्स्ट इसमें पेस्ट कर दें शायद।
Let me, I think, let me quickly share and you can take a maybe screenshot. Yeah, just take a like photo.
जी आप स्क्रीनशॉट ले लें। उमर, मीनवाइल यू कैन आस्क क्वेश्चन। उमर शराफत।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर, बेसिकली मेरा क्वेश्चन आपसे ये है, जैसे अभी आपने थोड़ी देर पहले बताया कि सर जब आप रिज्यूमे बना रहे होते हैं तो जो आपका अगर फॉर एग्जांपल नॉन टेक बैकग्राउंड है तो आप वो बेसिकली जो एक्सपीरियंस है आपका मेंशन ना करें। एज आई एम अ सिविल इंजीनियर तो मेरा 3-4 साल का ऑलमोस्ट एक्सपीरियंस है इन दैट सेम फील्ड, बट मेरा अभी डेटा साइंस में या इस तरीके से कोई एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है। तो फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर एंट्री लेवल जॉब या इंटर्नशिप अगर किसी ने करनी हो इस तरह की टेक कंपनीज के अंदर, तो वहां पर अगर आप ये एक्सपीरियंस नहीं देते तो आप अपने रिज्यूमे में क्या चीजें ऐसा हो सकता है कि मतलब फॉर अ पर्सन जो कि जिसकी डिग्री भी सीएस में नहीं है तो वो क्या कुछ लिख सकता है?
तो आई थिंक उसके लिए फिर आप ये करें कि आप couple of projects करें ऑनलाइन। So there are a couple of like websites. Just think of it as you are doing undergraduate as a data scientist engineer, and what kind of projects they will do. So like basic projects, something like that for learning, for your own learning. So actually, I would not recommend applying for this position like if you have not done like couple of projects before. I mean, they are looking for some people who have that experience, right? And if you're coming from different background, that's even important to actually have a couple of projects under your belt and put those projects in detail on your resume. And that is what matters, because as a, like, if you are think of it as a recruiter, you are hiring for a specific position, and if you have that specific experience in terms of if you've done projects on your own, that's even better. That shows that you are actually that's a growth mindset, and then you are willing to learn new stuff as well. Does
जी
that
और
answer
कोई
your
क्वेश्चन
question?
हो तो आप हैंड रेस कर लें, आप बता दें। आप हैंड रेस, कशिफ तारिक, आप क्वेश्चन पूछ लें बजाय उसको।
Okay, so there's some question: how to get remote jobs in US or Europe from Pakistan? How to prepare for product management interviews? Okay, for the first one, so there's I think couple of portals online where do actually people apply for remote positions, and have got a remote position as well while working in Pakistan. So I mean, I think I don't know the portal name, but I can check with my friend who actually got that job. So the thing is, so once you actually prepare for that, you can actually find a lot of portals where they hire from Pakistan and other countries. So that might be, I think if you just Google that, that should actually answer that question, hopefully. And for second part, prepare for product management interviews. So product management, again, at least in US, is relatively soft skill involved, because you actually have to communicate with a lot of people with a lot of different background, like really, like at least for product manager position. So I know people who actually do product management job who are immigrants here. It's not that it's not possible, but again, if you are in US, that is much easier. But if you're not targeting tier 1, tier 2 companies, then it might be relatively easy to actually get these kind of jobs. Yeah, but then again, you have to apply and then justify like why you are the best candidate for that. It's kind of relatively bit difficult, but it's not impossible.
जी और कोई क्वेश्चन है किसी का? हैंड रेस करें, अदरवाइज हम कंक्लूड करेंगे अगर आपको सब समझ आ गई है।
No, actually, I cannot. So at this stage, yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot share slides for now.
जी अब क्या क्वेश्चन आया था? जी रिकॉर्डिंग हम जो है वो कर देंगे उसमें एटम कैंप के यूट्यूब चैनल के ऊपर जो है वो रिकॉर्डिंग 1-2 दिन में हम पोस्ट कर देंगे इसको जो है। और क्या था? ठीक है, काशिफ तारिक का क्वेश्चन आ गया था। आई थिंक वी आर डन फॉर नाउ। एंड आपके मज़ीद क्वेश्चन हुए तो मोहसिन साहब ने ऑलरेडी जो है वो शेयर किए हुए हैं अपना कॉन्टैक्ट भी, लिंक्डइन पे भी यू कैन ऐड हिम। एंड इट वाज अ वंडरफुल सेशन, काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें जो है वो सीखने को मिली मुझे भी, एंड आई होप ऑल ऑफ यू हैव लर्न। सो मोहसिन साहब विल कंटिन्यू टू सीक योर गाइडेंस। मे बी किसी वक्त हम आपका जो है वो एक स्पेसिफिक सेशन जो है एआई के ऊपर करना चाहेंगे आपसे, जिसमें ज़्यादा फोकस जो है वो एआई के अंदर इस वक्त क्या कंपनीज में हो रहा है और कैसे कैरियर्स इवॉल्व हो रहे हैं, बिकॉज द रैपिड ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इज हैपनिंग इन दिस सेक्टर। तो उसमें कैसे कैरियर्स में शिफ्ट आएगी। बट इफ़ देयर इज़ एनीथिंग यू कैन ऐड राइट नो, तो आप अगर ऐड करना चाहें तो अभी कुछ बता दें डेटा साइंस और एआई के बारे में, और उसमें बाद में हम इस पे मज़ीद भी एक डेडिकेटेड सेशन कर लेंगे आपसे।
I think most of the stuff is actually happening here. I'm sure like a lot of folks have already heard of ChatGPT. I actually am using ChatGPT for my own office job as well. Like if I have to write something code, I just ask ChatGPT instead of Google, and that gives me like a couple of options and answer. So most likely, I think natural language processing and like language models, large language models, like they're gonna be actually evolve a lot. And so with the session coming, like I mean, if this year maybe it might be relatively a bit difficult to actually get AI related jobs, because so typically these are performance improvement jobs in a way, and they actually add benefit, but you don't build something like which is actually rightly could it be used to drive profits in a way. So that might be a bit difficult, but again not impossible. But again, I mean, the field is evolving too fast that you can't track of him. So I would just suggest that take a couple of online courses from Coursera or deeplearning.ai, and you get good enough to actually start working on those projects.
बिल्कुल ठीक है. तो how important is to learn object-oriented design for big tech companies?
So they may ask, but it's not too important. Like, I mean, you should have some basic sense in a way that if you have taken a course on object-oriented programming, you should be able to actually know like what are the classes, the interfaces, and how they link. But they don't specifically ask these kind of questions. To be personally, I have not experienced myself in like 5-10 years. So, but I have heard some people they get asked these kind of questions, but for some reason they haven't asked me yet. But I think it's a very short domain. Couple of hours or maybe a couple of days should be enough to actually understand the whole concept. Yeah.
बिल्कुल ठीक है. तो थैंक यू मोहसन साहब, हम इसको कंक्लूड करते हैं. आई थिंक अभी इट्स गेटिंग 10:13 पाकिस्तान, लोग भी थक गए हैं, सोना होगा लोगों ने. कुछ नहीं, लाहौर वाले, कराची वालों ने तो अभी डिनर करना होगा, और इस्लामाबाद वालों का पहले ही 1.5 घंटा लेट हो गया होगा सोने का. तो लाहौर वाले अभी टीवी देख रहे होंगे मेरा ख्याल है.
Thanks everyone for joining.
चलें जी, थैंक यू जी. अल्लाह हाफिज.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you.